I'm recording this on the day of Trump's second inauguration and the day after the whole TikTok ban fiasco that lasted all of like 13 hours. And for some reason, my head keeps thinking about Cambridge Analytica. Before we relegated Facebook to the boomers and left it forever, everyone had a Facebook account. It was synonymous with the internet in many parts of the world. I just read a great piece by Yuval talking about mourning the loss of Facebook. He captures exactly the feeling of what that was like in the Facebook heyday. And because of its prevalence, we all just kind of lived on that platform. We told Facebook everything about our lives, about ourselves. We gave it photos. We filled out everything about our favorite movies, our books, our personalities. We talked about politics. We talked about our families, our dreams, our desires. Maybe we talked about things we were scared about. And this is before an era of data is the new oil being a term that every tech bro latched onto for their next startup idea. But what happened at Facebook in the mid-2010s with Cambridge Analytica, I view as a turning point in us walking away from any semblance of privacy on the internet. In this video, I want to recap a little bit about what the whole Cambridge Analytica thing even was. What happened? How did it happen? What's changed since then? Or more importantly, what's not changed since then? And how I think that it's galvanized this new blueprint of operating procedures of oligarchs using social networks to choose who they want to place into power. I know I made a tongue-in-cheek statement to start this video, but I'm choosing this week to make this video for very obvious reasons around the whole TikTok ban and the stated reasons behind it. We're hearing that it's because of cybersecurity reasons, which I disagree with. I'm gonna make a separate video about why I disagree about that part. We're also hearing it's about, hey, we don't wanna let TikTok or the Chinese government behind TikTok controlling the narrative of news that's hitting 170 million Americans who use TikTok. 170 million Americans is a big number. People love TikTok. More people use TikTok than vote. So I think this is very analogous to Facebook of the 2010s, which also everyone used. So come back in time with me. We're going to go back to about 2013 for when this whole Cambridge Analytica saga started. I'm going to walk you through it. If you don't remember it, maybe you're too young, maybe you don't even know what I'm talking about. But this is one of the biggest privacy scandals in history. And at the time, it was called a data breach. Even though there was no hackers involved, this is just how Facebook worked. We're going to talk about how Facebook as a platform allowed these researchers to collect data on 87 million Americans and use that data in elections. All right, let's revisit the core incident before we talk about all the after effects. So this is the article that started it all. This is on The Guardian, and the New York Times was also involved. But this whistleblower, an ex-employee of Cambridge Analytica, Christopher Wiley, came to them in 2018 and exposed it all. He talked about how his company improperly accessed the Facebook data of 87 million users. He also described himself, and I quote, as the gay Canadian vegan who somehow ended up creating Steve Bannon's psychological warfare tool. I just love that quote. But Christopher's just the whistleblower, and 2018 is kind of the end of this whole saga. To really get back to the beginning, we got to go back to like 2013, 2014 to this guy, Alexander Kogan. He's a psychology professor at the University of Cambridge who created a Facebook app called This Is Your Digital Life. It was one of those cute little quizzes that we would take back in the day for like a micro hit of dopamine that told you like, which Harry Potter character are you? Zooming back even further, it seems like Kogan actually ripped this research off from some other professors at Cambridge, but we're not going to get into all that. This app, This Is Your Digital Life, had over 270,000 users actually download it and take the personality quiz. But, and here's where all the trouble starts. That app did not just collect the data of those 270,000 people, it also collected the data of anyone who was friends with any of those people. This is how Facebook's API worked pre-2015. Who remembers like Farmville or any of those other apps that was like super popular back then? You could actually download apps onto Facebook. There was like a whole company, Zynga. I had some friends that worked in their security department that it was all about like people playing Farmville or like poker with their friends. You basically installed this app into your Facebook profile. And then in the API pre-2015, there was a loophole Basically, Facebook allowed these apps to scrape information from a bunch of people that didn't actually download the app and consent to any of that. So Kogan made this like personality app. Then he was wind up working with SCL Elections and this guy, Alexander Nix. SCL is like a British behavioral research communications firm, and they had been experimenting with some of this data-driven psychological profiling in use in these types of election ways. So Kogan with SCL wound up spinning out a new firm, Cambridge Analytica, in about 2013 in Delaware. So Kogan and SCL caught the attention of people like Steve Bannon and Robert Mercer. You probably know Steve Bannon, head of Breitbart, but Robert Mercer, you might not know, is one of the wealthiest people on the planet. He's a billionaire hedge fund magnate. The duo of Bannon and Mercer were seeing what was going on with all this data and psychological profiling. They got interested to use it in US elections, and that's where Cambridge Analytica is born. Steve Bannon was actually a vice president of Cambridge Analytica, along with Robert Mercer's family members. Cambridge Analytica's whole goal from the time they were born was to weaponize this data. So this is some of the earliest examples of using behavioral information on your social media profiles to build a model based on how they think you might behave come election time. Going back to Wiley, he's got a good quote on this. He said, "We exploited Facebook to harvest millions of people's profiles and built models to exploit what we knew about them and target their inner demons." So this data wasn't just like about numbers and your location and if they thought you were gonna like turn out or not. It was actually getting into people's like deepest desires and fears and like their core values and emotions. And they were using that to craft highly personalized and manipulative and highly targeted campaign ads. So the first campaign that they actually tested this whole hypothesis on was Senator Tom Tillis out of North Carolina. If you go back and look at data in 2014, Cambridge Analytica received $150,000 from the North Carolina Republican Party and $30,000 from the Tillis campaign itself. And he won by a landslide, by over 450,000 votes. So of course, Bannon and Mercer, ecstatic, ready to bring this to bigger stages. Those bigger stages famously were the 2016 Trump campaign and also the Ted Cruz campaign. There's also a lot of talk about how this data might have actually impacted the Brexit reform. With Cambridge Analytica data, they were able to highly target ads and deploy them to just the right regions against just the right people. These ads were designed to manipulate and pull on your fears and your angers and your divisiveness in order to achieve their election goals. And yet, even through all of this, from 2013 through 2016, 2017, it wasn't until 2018 when Wiley came and became a whistleblower to The Guardian and New York Times that we really understand the scale of this entire operation. That's when the world finally understood what had happened. A bunch of people's data was collected without their permission. That data was misused, democracy itself had been manipulated, and Facebook's lack of oversight had enabled it all. Let's talk a little bit more about what about Facebook's platform allowed this all to happen. So you've all downloaded apps, either on your phone, maybe a browser extension, and you get that permissions page, right? Hey, would you like to give this app permission to your contacts, your location, your camera, your microphone, whatever it is. At which point most people's brain turns off, they hit accept. Please give me the thing that I just asked for. I want it right now. Why is this thing popping up? Please give it to me. What's going on? Why is this slowing me down? The same as all those like cookie pop-ups, right? It's like, yeah, whatever. Just give me the website. Obviously, if you're more privacy minded, this doesn't apply to you, but I'm just saying for the vast majority of people who have no idea what the heck they're even doing and they just want their damn game, they're going to click accept, 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 accept. At this time in Facebook land, pre-2015, if you downloaded an app, you weren't just giving it permission to your data, you were also giving it permission to potentially all of your connections, their likes, their posts, their personal information, anything. So even if you were a privacy-minded person and you weren't installing apps with broad permissions, if you were friends with someone who did, and you probably were, your data was up for grabs to whatever apps they installed. So Alexander Kogan, the Cambridge professor behind the app This Is Your Digital Life, exploited this loophole perfectly. Got 270,000 people to take an innocuous looking personality quiz. The very, very fine print said, hey, we're going to collect your information for academic purposes. And through that 270,000 people, 87 million people's worth of information was included in the data that Cambridge Analytica compiled. To give you an idea of the kind of profile that they were building with all of that data. Like I said, It wasn't getting to just like the name with your email and your location that we generally hear about in data breaches. They were building psychological profiles based on the information they were collecting. How open is this person? How conscientious are they? Are they an extrovert? Are they an introvert? Are they agreeable? Are they neurotic? Are they satisfied with their life as it is right now? Let's take a stab at their IQ. Obviously, their political leanings are very important to this group. Their religion, their job, what they went to school for, self-disclosure in general. Do you even tell anybody about yourself? Are you suspicious in dealings with others? Do you change your personality based on who you're with? Then there's a whole bucket I found interesting around sensational interests. Things like militarism, obviously, guns, martial arts, crossbows, knives, violent occultism, drugs, black magic, paganism, intellectual activities, singing, making music, foreign travel, the environment, credulousness, the paranormal, flying saucers, and then wholesome interests like camping, gardening, and hill walking. I'm like a normal human, so I would call that hiking. Is that a British thing? I don't know what hill walking is. And your belief in astrology based on a 5-point scale. Yes, I'm sorry, astrology girlies out there. If you're reading horoscopes, that was an important piece of this information. Some other interesting direct quotes here while I'm on this page. This is again, the whistleblower Wiley said, Facebook data was the saving grace to deliver the models on the voters that the Mercers demanded of them. We wanted as much as we could get. Where it came from, who said we could have it or not, we weren't really asking. So why did Facebook allow all of this? Famously, in the early 2010s, the Facebook motto was move fast and break things. Obviously, that was like during the time of the DevOps movement of coding fast and not going through like change control meetings that were, as they saw it, the death of innovation for like a Silicon Valley type company. You had to move a lot faster than the old guard or you weren't going to beat them. Somewhere along the lines, that changed to move fast and apologize later. Because we're not talking about technical breaking things. We're talking about ethics and privacy. Mark Zuckerberg himself is famously quoted as saying as far back as 2010, as privacy is no longer a social norm. They didn't see data as a responsibility. They saw it as fuel to grow their empire. This laissez-faire approach to handling people's data was a perfect storm for someone like Steve Bannon or Robert Mercer to walk in, build an app like they did at Cambridge Analytica and suck up as much data as possible. Combination of Facebook's lax oversight, Mercer's billions, and Bannon's idea for psychological warfare in political campaigns created this system that was capable of manipulating millions of voters. And it all started due to Facebook's API prioritizing access over accountability. This wasn't just a technological oversight. This was Facebook choosing to grow at all costs. It created the opportunity for Kogan, Mercer, and Bannon to exploit it, and they, of course, happily did so. Okay, speeding up to more modern times. Despite everything that I just said, why has not much really changed in terms of United States privacy regulation? I just covered on this channel a few days ago about a data broker, Cambridge Analytica, getting hacked, and the kind of data that they stockpiled would have made Facebook blush in 2013. Spoiler on my other upcoming video about why the TikTok ban has nothing to do with cybersecurity. If you were really going to tackle that and that was your concern, you'd be regulating data brokers, not banning single apps one at a time. Okay, let's talk about what did change for just a second. In 2018, right around the time of this whistleblower, we got GDPR. Not saying this is the reason, but the timing, obviously, there's a heightened sense of awareness and concern about people's privacy online and data collection by people like Facebook. And then, ta-da, we got GDPR. You have GDPR to thank for a lot of things because in order for anybody to do business with any people who are sitting in Europe, they had to comply with GDPR. So even though GDPR only covers Europe, many companies, instead of doing it two ways, one for the Americas and one for Europe, they just did it the same way. So every banner that ever pops up that talks about you accepting cookies, GDPR to thank. The crux of GDPR is you control your data. You get to give them permission or revoke that permission at any time. You can even request from the company, hey, what kind of information do you have about me? And then you can request them, hey, can you go delete that, please? Obviously, this isn't like an end all be all, like we did it. Privacy is like restored to everyone kind of moment because most people aren't going to go through all this. They're just going to click accept the cookies. They're going to give up their data. As we saw with the TikTok ban, users flocked to an even more Chinese app in protest of the TikTok ban. And they said, I don't care. I saw memes that were like, I'm going to mail my birth certificate to the Chinese government. And these are the kinds of things that people are joking about because we're so burnt out on our data being bought, stolen, sold to the highest bidder, whatever it is, that we just want to use the services that we just want to use. But GDPR is a major step forward. But why don't we have an equivalent in the USA? We've seen a few states come up with their own laws, like California's CCPA. And while they're probably helpful, they're not really creating the global accountability that we need to tackle these massive data collection schemes that data brokers are doing. Also, why change? Nothing really happened in the wake of Cambridge Analytica. Yes, Facebook got fined by the FTC, and it was a pretty big number. We'll get to that. But users' behavior didn't really change in any meaningful way. I know I left Facebook, but it really had not much to do with everything that we're talking about today. Yeah, that left a bad taste in my mouth, but more the platform had kind of jumped the shark. I could tell I was being manipulated to get into fights with family members of mine. I was sick of purposefully logging in and just getting angry at loved ones. And I know I wasn't alone. I know a lot of people left, but 72% of Americans still use Facebook. So what consequences did Facebook face in the wake of Cambridge Analytica? Well, in 2019, Facebook got fined by the FTC for $5 billion for Cambridge Analytica privacy violations. This is the famous congressional hearing where you've probably still seen pictures of Mark Zuckerberg really sweating in this testimony, sipping his water, all that kind of stuff comes from the Cambridge Analytica trials. And while yes, $5 billion is a big number, and it's the biggest fine of its kind, at the time of the fine, Facebook had made $15 billion in revenue just in the first 3 months of 2019. I think also at the time of the fine, I read they made $70 billion in the previous year. If the punishment for a crime is a fine, it's not really a punishment if you have the money. This is like a parking ticket. This could be rounded down to the cost of doing business. So after a $5 billion fine on $70 billion in revenue, of course, Facebook's stock probably tanked, right? Nope, it went up 1% in the day of the news. The market looked at that and said, well, they got away with it. All right, so the corporation got away with it. They made some cosmetic changes to privacy settings, and they kind of went about their day. Their ad revenue has exploded. Barely a speed bump. So you're probably saying, well, governments will probably step in. They don't want their elections manipulated like this, correct? No, governments looked at this as a blueprint. Look at what we could do here. It's not even a scandal anymore. Political campaigns have entire teams of data analysts to target their ads and manipulate voters. Me saying that probably doesn't even sound shocking to you. And that was the cause of this whole scandal in this decade. Social media has become a weapon for state-sponsored operations. Look at all the campaigns that have come out of Russia using social media to influence and manipulate foreign elections. They spread disinformation, they cause divisiveness, and they manipulate it to whichever degree that they want. In the US domestically, forget about Russia, both political parties have leaned on micro-targeting ads to their voter base. So the uncomfortable truth here, and kind of the point of the whole video that I'm making, is that the powers that be benefit from the behaviors that Cambridge Analytica pioneered. Those same tactics are used widely today by politicians, intelligence agencies, and marketing firms. There's no incentive for them to create stricter regulations that would limit their own ability to manipulate you. Cambridge Analytica not only revealed that the system is flawed, but it revealed that the system is profitable. Let's fast forward to today. Why am I talking about Cambridge Analytica in 2025? Well, I think it's super important to understand what a big scandal this was, what a big fine it was, and how somehow we all just allowed that to become modus operandi for every social network on the planet. Why do you think Elon Musk bought Twitter? Why do you think the Chinese are having a death grip on TikTok? Staying with Facebook a second, not even getting to these other examples, you had Mark Zuckerberg go from nervously sipping water in front of Congress to his entire PR rebrand into basically a Joe Rogan listener. First and foremost, they rebranded the entire company to Meta to focus on the metaverse in the future. Look over here, shiny object. Forget about the scandal of how we abused your data, didn't protect it. Not only didn't protect it, encouraged the misuse of all the data we collected about you, by Cambridge Analytica. Now in 2025, with the whole world realizing you can just get away with this, Mark and the rest of the social media elites like Elon and Show at TikTok have realized, we don't even have to pretend here. The gloves are off here. We're getting rid of fact checking. We're getting rid of all the platform safety rules that helped protect users from harassment or stalking or violence. It's now just become the pay to play, who owns the algorithm game. Your data is old news. Those profiles are built. Facebook doesn't even have to do it themselves anymore. There's a whole ecosystem of ad tech and data brokers that will do it for them. If data was the new oil back then, now it's very obviously the algorithms are the new oil. The TikTok algorithm is currently the most valuable piece of tech on the planet. Elon acknowledged that on Twitter the other day, and he said, for now, which is basically openly agreeing that, yeah, it is, but I'm going to try to beat him at his own game. Elon, who poured over $100 million into the recent US election, who saw his own net worth increase by billions, which was the bargain of a lifetime. And then you have Show and TikTok praising President Trump in pop-up messages on the app to 170 million American users. Talk about a manipulation campaign. Trump was the one who signed the executive order to ban TikTok to begin with. Then he got the best advertising on the planet when TikTok came back from the ban and thanked him by name to everyone who opened the app. What's the common thread here? Zuckerberg, Musk, Chu, they've all taken lessons from what we learned during the Cambridge Analytica scandal. They're doubling down on what influence they have over the media you consume. They're deflecting scrutiny, maybe paying a few $1 million in speed bumps along the way. They've all found ways through all of this to not only stay in power, but increase their profits and increase their influence. The tools of manipulation exposed by Cambridge Analytica are not just still alive today, they're thriving. So what can we do about all of this? First, we need regulation with teeth universally. The global approach to data privacy is fragmented. Yes, Europe has GDPR, but the US still lacks a federal standard here. But it's not just about these laws on paper. We need algorithmic transparency. We have to know how the platforms we use decide what content to show us and what ads to show us. We also need to know and control what data they collect about us. These algorithms shape everything in our lives, from the news we read and consume to the products that we buy. Without independent oversight, they're complete black boxes to us, and anyone can have the finger on their scale. We need independent regulatory bodies to keep us honest about these algorithms, and they have to enforce compliance with the yet to exist laws. And if none of that happens, or bits and pieces of that happen, what we're going to keep seeing is these platforms moving fast and apologizing later. They're taking a PR first approach, not a privacy first approach. The future of data privacy and algorithmic transparency isn't just a cybersecurity or a tech issue. This is a societal issue. We're already late on this one. If we don't act fast, the next Cambridge Analytica isn't just going to undermine democracy, it could redefine it. Thanks for watching this episode. I enjoyed this trip down memory lane, as depressing as it was. If you found this video insightful at all, please let me know below. And please don't forget to like and subscribe as I get this YouTube channel off the ground for more content on cybersecurity and data privacy.